In 1976, in a salon in Paris, some of the most respected wine critics in the world sat in front of 10 glasses. None of them knew what they were drinking. Just red wine and white wine, served without a label, without an origin, without a price. When the results were counted, the judges had chosen cheap Californian wines over French Grand Crus that cost 10 times more. The best red wine of the tasting was a Napa Cabernet Sauvignon none of them had heard of. When the results were announced, Odette Kahn, editor of the most influential wine magazine in France, demanded her ballot back. She wanted to make sure the world would never know what she had chosen. The wine world was never the same. And the industry spent the next 5 decades trying to make everyone forget it happened. To understand why $15 beats $500 in blind tests, you need to understand the man who accidentally proved it. Stephen Spurrier was a British wine merchant running a small shop in Paris. He organized the tasting as a publicity stunt, a way to promote his business by showcasing California wines. He did not expect the Californians to win. Nobody did. Only one journalist bothered to show up, because everyone assumed it would be a non-story. When the results came in, Spurrier was as shocked as the judges. He had organized a tasting to celebrate California wine. He had accidentally detonated a bomb under a century of French wine supremacy. And that is exactly the problem with wine. The most important experiment in its history happened by accident. Think of it this way. Imagine you buy a perfume. The liquid inside costs a few dollars to produce. The bottle, the brand, and the expectation of sophistication that comes with the name on the label, that is what costs $200. Nobody argues that perfume is a scam. You are paying for the experience, not just the molecules. Wine works the same way, except perfume does not claim to be judged purely on its intrinsic qualities. Wine does. And that is where the contradiction lives. Now do the math. A bottle of Chateau Petrus costs between $3,000 and $5,000. The actual production cost of a bottle of wine, including grapes, barrel, bottling, and labeling, rarely exceeds $30. For premium wines, maybe $60. The rest is brand. History. The Chateau name on the label and the expectation it creates. The difference is $4,940. Paid one glass at a time, for something your brain cannot distinguish from a $15 bottle when the label is removed. And here is what makes that uncomfortable. A 2024 survey of American wine drinkers found that only 9% say they could definitely tell the difference between a $10 bottle and a $100 bottle of the same wine. 9%. The other 91% are essentially paying for a label. But it would be too easy to declare expensive wine a fraud and walk away. There is a real difference between wines. Terroir, soil, climate, altitude, produces genuinely distinct characteristics. The grapes of Burgundy grow in soil that exists nowhere else in the world. That is real. A $50 wine can be genuinely superior to a $15 one. The problem is that the price is not proportional to the difference. A $500 wine is rarely 10 times better than a $50 one. What the industry sells above $100 is decreasingly quality, and increasingly the psychology of owning something few people can have. But if quality differences exist, why do blind tests keep producing the same result? The answer came from a laboratory in California in 2008. Researchers at Caltech and Stanford gave 20 participants the same wine twice, once labeled $5, once labeled $90. While scanning their brains with fMRI. Participants reported significantly more pleasure with the wine they believed cost $90. The brain scans confirmed it. The region associated with genuine pleasure showed measurably higher activity when people believed they were drinking the expensive wine. Then the researchers ran a second experiment. Same wines, same participants, but this time with no price information. Without the price, participants rated the cheapest wine as their favorite. The wine did not change. The expectation changed. And the expectation was enough to physically alter the experience of pleasure in the brain. The price does not follow the quality. The price creates the quality. When you pay $500 for a bottle, you are not buying a better wine. You are buying a better experience of drinking it. The judgment of Paris was ignored by the entire French press. The only journalist present, Georges Tabor from Time, filed the story that changed everything. The French wine world said the tasting had been poorly conducted. Spurrier was banned from France's prestigious wine tour for a year. In 2006, 30 years later, a new tasting was organized in London and Napa. 5 of the 6 best wines were Californian. Chateau Mouton Rothschild, 1970, finished last. France did not send representatives. We want the expensive to be better. We want centuries of tradition to translate into something we can feel on our tongue. And when we cannot distinguish it in a blind test, our instinct is to doubt the test, not the wine. The $15 wine does not beat the $500 bottle because they are identical. It beats it because without the label, without the history, all that remains is the liquid. And the liquid, isolated from everything around it, rarely justifies the price difference. Is expensive wine the greatest legitimate scam in the history of consumption? Or the most honest product in the world, delivering exactly what it promises? Leave it in the comments. And if this changed how you look at the next bottle you open, hit like and subscribe. Every week, we go deeper into the brands, the prices, and the stories behind what you consume.